Hi guys, today we're going to talk about the midpoint formula. We're still looking at points that are on the coordinate plane, but today we're looking for the midpoint, the middle number or the middle point between the point -3, 5, for example, and the point 8, -1. And it's pretty simple. We're just looking for the halfway point. So the midpoint is the point that divides the line segment into two equal parts. So if you think about middle school, when you start you're in 6th, when you end you're in 8th, but the middle of that between 6 and 8 is 7. So just like on the distance formula, we used these little subscripts down here to identify, which point was the first point and which point was the second point. So the midpoint formula basically is just taking the average of the x values and the average of the y values. That's pretty much it. You add them up, then you divide by 2, and you get the midpoint. So let's look at this graphical example over here. For this first point right here, we have point A is -3, 4, and point B is 5, 4. And if we're looking for this point right here, we're just going to add -3 plus 5. That's going to give us 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And if we add 4 and 4, that's 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So the midpoint of line segment AB is at the point 1, 4. So let's take a look at problem number 1. The figure is a rhombus. We're going to estimate the coordinates of point P, and point P is the midpoint of line segment AB. So if we estimate those coordinates, it's probably somewhere right about there, which is the point 4, 2. So if we estimate the coordinates of the midpoint, it's somewhere around 4, 2. And again, we're looking for the midpoint of this line segment right here. So to find the midpoint, we have to decide which we want as our first point. So I'm going to call this point 1. And I'm going to call this point 2, just so we have our x1, y1, and x1, or x2 and y2. So our midpoint is going to be our x1 plus our x2 divided by 2. And our y coordinate is going to be our y1, which is 4, plus our y2, which is 0, and that's going to be divided by 2. So what we get is, for our x-coordinate, we get 8 divided by 2. For our y-coordinate, we get 4 divided by 2. And when we simplify that further, the midpoint is 4, 2. Okay, go ahead and pause the video and try problem number 2. Estimate the coordinates of S, which is the midpoint of side AD. Pause the video and then check your answer. Point A has coordinates of 0, 4. I'm going to use that as my x1 and my y1. Point D has coordinates of -8 and 0. I'm going to use that as my second point, so that's my x2 and my y2. If I'm going to find the midpoint, I need to take my x1 and my x2, find its average, so it's 0 plus -8 divided by 2. Then I need to take my y1 and my y2, find its average, which is 4 plus 0 divided by 2. 0 plus negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. 4 plus 0 divided by 2 is 2. So this is our midpoint S, which is the midpoint of side AD. Okay, once again, go ahead and pause the video and try examples 3 and 4. Find the midpoints of side BC and CD. Okay, hopefully you've worked these problems out on your own. We need to find the midpoint of side BC. Point B is 8, 0. Point C is 0, negative 4. I'm going to use point B as my x1, y1, and point C as my second point, x2, y2. And again, to find the midpoint, I'm going to take the average of my x values and the average of my y values. So my x values are 8 and 0, so 8 plus 0. My y values are 0 and negative 4, 0 plus negative 4. When we simplify, 8 plus 0 divided by 2 is 4, and 0 plus negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So this is the midpoint of side BC. Now we have to find the midpoint of side CD. Point C, once again, is 0, negative 4, and point D has coordinates of negative 8 and 0. I'm going to use this as my first point, my x1, y1. This is my second point, my x2 and y2. And again, the midpoint is just the average of my x's and the average of my y's. My x values are 0 and negative 8. And my y values are 4 and 0. When I add those together and divide by 2, 0 plus negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. And negative 4 plus 0 divided by 2 is negative 2. So the midpoint of side CD is negative 4, negative 2. Okay, so now it's your turn to answer multiple choice question number 1. Find the midpoint of the diameter of the circle below. We have the point negative 1, 5 and the point 4, negative 3. The free response question, be careful, because the free response question is not asking for midpoint, it's asking you for the distance between the points 3, 0 and 0, 4. Make sure to record your answers on the Google form. Have a good night.